Imagine you wake up 4,000 years ago, but instead of mud floors and hunger, you open your eyes on silk sheets, the smell of roasted meat already filling the air, and a servant standing by the door just to fan you while you sleep. Sounds like a fantasy, right? But for a tiny slice of people in the ancient world, this was just an average morning. Today we are going deep into what life actually looked like if you were born rich thousands of years ago. And some of these details are going to completely change how you picture the past. Let's start with where you would live. While most people in ancient Egypt, Rome or Mesopotamia were packed into small mud brick homes with 1 or 2 rooms, the wealthy lived in sprawling estates that could rival modern mansions. In ancient Rome, a wealthy family's home could have dozens of rooms, private bathhouses, heated floors using a clever underfloor system, and indoor courtyards filled with fountains and gardens. In Egypt, nobles lived behind tall walls in villas with their own wells, grain stores, and even private zoos where they kept exotic animals just to impress visitors. And speaking of impressing people, food was basically a weapon of status. While ordinary people survived mostly on bread, beer, and whatever vegetables they could grow, the rich feasted on roasted gazelle, imported wine, honey-soaked pastries, and spices carried in from thousands of miles away. The wealthiest hosts in Rome threw banquets that could last for hours, with multiple courses including stuffed dormice, flamingo tongue, and even peacock. The goal was never just to feed your guests, it was to prove you had access to things nobody else could even imagine tasting. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Clothing was not just about staying warm or covering up, it was basically a walking advertisement of your bank account. In many ancient societies, certain colours were legally reserved for the elite. Take a famous purple dye made from crushing thousands of tiny sea snails. It took so many snails and so much effort to produce even a small amount of this colour that wearing it became a privilege reserved for royalty and the extremely wealthy. In some places, wearing the wrong colour if you were not rich enough could actually get you in serious trouble with the law. Let's talk about something you might not expect: hygiene. You would think ancient life meant everyone was dirty all the time, but the wealthy actually had surprisingly advanced grooming routines. In ancient Egypt, rich men and women shaved their heads and wore elaborate wigs, partly for fashion and partly to avoid lice. They used scented oils, dark eyeliner, and even early versions of toothpaste made from crushed shells and ash. In Rome, the elite had access to private bathhouses with hot and cold pools, and they had servants whose entire job was to scrape oil and dirt off their owner's skin, using a small curved tool. Speaking of servants, this is where the gap between rich and poor becomes almost impossible to imagine. A wealthy household in ancient Rome or Egypt could employ dozens, sometimes hundreds of people. There were cooks, hairdressers, scribes, musicians, and even servants, whose only job was to whisper the names of guests to their master so he would never forget anyone at a party. Owning this many people working for you was not just about getting tasks done. It was a status symbol all on its own. The more servants you had walking behind you, the more powerful you looked to everyone watching. Entertainment for the wealthy also looked completely different from everyday life. While most people worked from sunrise to sunset just to survive, the rich had something most people never had: free time, and lots of it. They hosted private music performances, paid poets to write about their achievements, watched private fighting matches arranged just for them, or sailed down rivers on private boats surrounded by servants. Some wealthy families even kept their own private collections of handwritten books, which at the time were an incredible luxury, since every single page had to be copied out by hand. But here is the twist that most people do not expect. Being rich in the ancient world did not protect you from everything. Diseases spread by dirty water, insects, and crowded cities did not care how much gold you owned. And in a strange way, some habits of the wealthy actually made things worse. Many Romans stored their wine and food in containers lined with a soft metal that slowly poisoned them over years, without anyone realizing why. Some ancient queens reportedly used cosmetics containing dangerous metals, all in the name of beauty. So being rich came with its own hidden dangers that even the best healers of the time could not explain or even detect. And then there is death, which might be the most fascinating part of all. While poor people were often buried in simple graves with little more than the clothes on their back, the wealthy went out in extraordinary style. In Egypt, rich individuals were preserved using expensive oils and resins, wrapped in fine linen, and buried with furniture, jewelry, food, and even small statues meant to serve them in the afterlife. In ancient China, some powerful rulers were buried with entire armies of life-size clay soldiers, built to protect them even after death. The sheer amount of effort poured into these tombs is honestly one of the biggest reasons we know so much about ancient civilizations today, because the rich quite literally took their wealth and their secrets into the ground with them. So when you really think about it, being rich in the ancient world was not just about comfort, it was about controlling every part of life, and even death, in ways most people could never even dream of. Bigger homes, rarer foods, forbidden colours, private bathhouses, armies of servants, and tombs built to last forever. It is strange to think that some of these ancient luxuries, like private gardens, perfumes, and personal spa treatments, are still considered signs of wealth today. If you found this as fascinating as I did, make sure to subscribe, because we are going to keep digging into the strange, surprising, and sometimes unsettling secrets of ancient history. See you in the next one.